to learn and love all the trades involved in the process of building, from the carpenter, the bricklayer, the plumber, the worker who prepares a wooden formwork or for the concrete pillar, whatever. I think that this is the main things that should be considered if you want to start in architecture.
About to enter the Archgyan podcast, India's first and very own architecture podcast, where you'll hear the insights, experiences, and journeys from India's leading architects. No matter what your skill level is, together we'll build on our knowledge and share architecture's greatest stories ever told. Now, here's your host, Manish Paul Simon.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Archgyan podcast. In this episode, we have with us Antonio Tort, who is a BIM specialist, architect, and the founder of BIM Skills. His career spans over 20 years, and he started off right from the 90s. So he's got a lot to share, and this was definitely a fun episode, and I personally learned quite a lot interviewing Antonio. Let me give you a brief on Antonio. So he completed his architectural education from Universidad de Santiago de Compostela in Spain. He then opened his own practice in 1990 called Antonio Tort Architects. And he eventually stumbled into the world of digital architecture, starting with Archicad in 1995, and a few months later made the jump from CAD to BIM. He's since worked with BIM and successfully co-founded BIM Freelance, which unites all those in the AECO sector. By the way, AECO is Architecture, Engineering, Construction and Operations. And he helps in the implementation of BIM and learning BIM methodology. He's going to be sharing his journey right from studying in architecture school in the 1990s to founding his own firm, to jumping and transitioning into the world of BIM. What is openBIM? How BIM Freelance has helped many become leaders in the BIM field. BIM seminars, workshops, future of the AECO industry, and loads more. So this is going to be a BIM episode, and I would definitely recommend you guys check it out all the way through, because we don't get too much into the jargon. You will learn about the basics of BIM, what is BIM, and why BIM is something which every one of us need to incorporate into our work cultures and projects. BIM is definitely the future, and I hope all of y'all are making the transition. With that said, please do follow us on Instagram. We go by the handle of Archgyan. I try to put up content on a daily basis. And also check out my new course, which is a SketchUp and V-Ray course for interior design. I'm also creating courses for students and more. It will be coming up soon in a few months' time. You can head to archgyan.com/courses. And also you can avail a 55% offer, which is valid for a few days. Again, I don't want to keep repeating this in every episode, but hope all of y'all are safe and doing well. Please do not venture outside. And this is the best time to upskill yourself. So head to my course, learn about how to use SketchUp and V-Ray, head to Udemy, head to LinkedIn Learning. There's so many resources online these days that there is no excuse for you not to learn. I wish I had so much of content back in my architecture school days so that even I could have picked up on some much needed skills to survive as an architect these days. So this is the best time to upskill yourselves. I hope you guys get started. And with all that said, here is the episode with Antonio Tort. Let's go.
Well, in fact, I was not going to be an architect.
Okay.
What I really wanted then, let's just say that I was 17 and even crazier than today. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be a pilot, an airplane pilot. Then I love airplanes and helicopters, and I applied to be a pilot in the army.
Nice.
And the bad thing was that I passed the first cut, so I was happy. But my wife's father, who knew how much distracted I was, suggested me to think if I could see myself saying, "I yourself my sergeant" for the rest of my life. Obviously, it was the side I haven't seen then. The other option was architecture, which I also liked very much since I was a kid, and well, here I am.
Awesome. And this was in 1990, right?
Yes, 1990. Yeah, I was 17 then.
All right. So how was it studying in Universidad de Santiago de Compostela?
Well, not so good.
Okay.
The mix between an open and distracted character as mine with a public university with some professors who believed themselves to be in possession of the absolute truth didn't work out very well. I admit that my attitude was not the best, but even though my path was long, I was lucky enough to find some valuable professors along that way, and mainly in fundamental subjects such as projects and calculation of structures. Well, I must say that in Spain, the career of architecture is a master in science, and structural and MEP engineering subjects are covered in depth. So I was happy to have good professors then.
All right. So, and then you started your own firm after that, right?
Well, yes, but I started but before I started, I started working part-time with an architect. He was specialized in historical research and monumental architecture and expert report. I learned a lot from him. I followed his example, and I bought as many books as I could afford then. And that was very helpful in the long nights when we, the architects, have to work to prepare the deliverable for the next morning, and your friends can help because it's night, you know. And then I finished my career in 1990. Started a small practice, a small studio in my own home, in a small room, and decided that my professional life would be digital from the day one.
Okay.
It was a very, very important decision. Remember that in 1990, there was practically no internet, at least here in Spain.
Yeah.
When it worked, it did at a speed of 2,400 baudios per second. So imagine that. Then with a bank loan, I bought my first computer, an IBM 286, with 20 megabytes of RAM, a black and white screen, and a pen plotter. And with that, and an English copy of AutoCAD version, 2.6, I think I remember.
That was the first version, right?
Yes, yeah, one of the first.
Awesome.
Yes, it was completely self-taught. I have no other possibility because nobody in my environment had made a jump to the digital world. I was alone, and I learned little by little. I tried to teach from what I learned, and I taught the technician in my areas as a CAD consultant. By that time, I became an AutoCAD certified trainer.
Nice.
The calls for technical consultancy multiplied exponentially. It was crazy that time. And then in September 1995, I needed my first break because I've been 5 years with no holidays, no rest. And then I went to Helsinki to an event called Architects and Computers.
Okay.
I saw a demonstration of Archicad. I think the version, it was 4.50. And then I realized that it was the path I've been looking for. Graphisoft provided me with a copy to test the program. It was about 20 or 30 disks of 1.45 megabytes. I think probably you didn't use that. And I installed it, and since then I continued with it. That was my start with the BIM.
Right.
And in a way, it was like going back to the beginning with AutoCAD. Again, alone, again self-taught, again trial and error. Many dark years where the only beneficiary of the rigorous use of constructive process was my own staff. Well, I recognize that during those years I did many things wrong, but the mistakes were preparing us to improve the following assignments. I do regret having followed the path and look forward every day to seeing what I left to learn and improve. The challenges were similar in both cases, and my feeling both times were quite similar, like the ugly duckling story, more or less.
All right. So you saw the entire revolution of CAD, but BIM is still not a concept back then, right? It came later, right?
Yeah, it was. That's the point. I started alone, and then I started being alone. Made a lot of bad decisions. It was always the same story: trial and error, because it considered that years. There was the dark years with very short access to internet, and you had to manage yourself. You were alone.
So when did you feel that you started picking up pace and BIM started kicking off?
Well, when I started, on the first occasion, I think that, everyone was still doing projects in the traditional way. I had to invent my blocks, my line styles, everything. And the bad side of this was that I had to train every draftsman that was joining the staff. So when I installed Archicad, I did it by surprise and did it on all the computers during a weekend, so that when my staff arrived to the workstations on Monday, AECO was no longer on the hard drives. The scene was really fun, between panic and mass hysteria. And it was like we all jumped into a pool. There was no choice, but we had to learn to swim. I mean, we had to do it quickly. Somehow it was like going back to the beginning again. We had to create standards, systems, protocols. The only real beneficiary of the rigorous use of this constructive process was my own staff. I recognize that we made a lot of bad decisions, but I don't regret having followed this path. I look forward every day to seeing what I have left to learn and improve. The important thing is that the trade was and still is there. That's what you must not forget when you apply BIM. That you are architect, you are engineer, you are whatever you are. But the BIM is only just a tool, nothing else. You need to identify the objective, what's the purpose the client expects from you or your team, and decide how to carry it out and be rigorous with that, what was agreed with in your contract. That's all, but never lose the focus.
All right. Awesome. And what kind of projects were that you worked on back then in the 90s and 2000s? There was a very different way of looking at them. At first, you naturally you tried to translate the same habits to the new platform, the new digital platform. If you were used to work on paper, with paper, you simply translate that to the new digital era. And this is a big mistake. You have to stop, rethink everything that you do, and go with a new thinking, a new conception of how to develop projects, because the workflow is different. You have to apply standards, be less artist not in the creation of architecture. I'm not talking now about that. I'm talking about how to improve the skills that you need to apply in your practice. That's all. All right. So let's jump to the world of BIM. I would like this episode to be like a brief introduction, because a lot of listeners are still confused about what BIM is. So what, according to you, Antonio, is BIM?
Well, let me say something maybe surprising. BIM is nothing.
Okay.
I mean, BIM is just a tool that you need to develop or to achieve the same purpose that you needed from those architects who built pyramids or who built Rome or whatever. So it's simply a tool. But if I had to define BIM, I would use very few words. One is standards. Second is processes. And third is try to be strict with what you apply. That's all. The rest, interoperability, ISO 19650, whatever, is secondary. But the main thing is that to rethink how you do the things, thinking that you must collaborate and interoperate with a lot of people. So don't you think that you are the king of the world and you work alone. So consider the other professionals that will cooperate with you. That's all.
All right. And do you feel that BIM as a platform has a lot of advantages compared to just, the 2D world?
Yes. Has a lot of advantages, but it's not free. You have to work a lot. Do you know that example that when you talk about doing something, you press that button and everything is done? No, nothing is done. So you have to rethink a lot of things, and you have to prepare. The preparation of how you deliver your work is extraordinarily important. So there's a big change of parameters about this, the different paradigm. But once you do it, the traceability that you get on your work, it has no something that you have never seen before, because you can follow every error that you had, why you reach all the targets that you need, but you have to work a lot and prepare a lot.
All right. And BIM is not just, since our podcast is more about architecture, BIM is not only for architecture, right? It's beyond architecture.
Yes, further than that, I think that as I told you, BIM is nothing. So I think that you can apply BIM for different scales of work. For example, some people say that there is a big difference practicing BIM in big projects, and it's very, very difficult to apply it in a small project. No, I don't think that. Most practicing architects around the world don't do TinyBIM. They even do microBIM, or what I say, NanoBIM. This is applicable at all scale. The idea is that you apply and you work with BIM and you apply the BIM methodology because you know that that's the right way. BIM is basically standards, processes, and traceability. And that applies to any technical activity. Obviously, the complexity of an airport or a hospital has nothing to do with solving the remodeling of an apartment, let's say. But coordinating information is overwhelmingly more difficulty. But it's essentially the same thing. So if you apply ISO 19650 in your daily activity, it improves greatly the effectiveness of your results. So in small projects, one person has to take on several roles and responsibilities and has to do it simultaneously. But for example, ensuring the famous 5 W's, who, what, when, where, and why, is a good start even in NanoBIM.
But what do you mean by NanoBIM or TinyBIM?
Micro-BIM. It's not TinyBIM, that's a small BIM, small scale. I mean that you can apply BIM to a very, very small project. So you don't need to work under a big company of 2,000 engineers beside you working, pushing together for one project. You can practice BIM alone and working for a very, very small remodeling. And is good for you because you are doing it under control, without lacks of information. The deliverables are done on time and with the compliance that you need. That's all. So when I talk about NanoBIM, I'm talking about very, very, very small BIM, like the nano architecture.
Some of us architects have this preconceived notion that using these softwares can limit our creativity. Do you feel so?
No, absolutely not. No, you simply, it's a tool. So let us say,
for example, Revit is not so, you can't explore so much in terms of design, right?
Yeah, it all goes on how comfortable you feel using one tool. Sometimes I use a pencil, sometimes I use a pen, and I don't know why, but it depends on what's the roughness of the paper I use. So I think that somehow it can be applied to the different projects. Bentley software may be optimal to infrastructures, and maybe the Revit software is good for, let's say, many things, like it was AutoCAD. I've seen projects and chemical applications on AutoCAD. And I've seen technicians using AutoCAD to make some patterns of clothing, and so it's very, very versatile. So it depends on how comfortable you are. That's why I hate to identify BIM with Revit or with any other trademark. I think that we should push for the openBIM formats like IFC, and use whatever you want, but give me the deliverable I need to use.
All right. In India, there is still a lot of resistance to BIM and BIM implementation. Why do you feel that's so? Why do so many firms and countries still resist BIM?
India is not different than the same. In other countries that I know, we have the same problem. Is that it's very difficult to move the industry of architecture in outside of their comfort area. So the industry is lazy. And they said, no, okay, I've been doing this for a long time. It works. And why should I move? Well, you should move for one simple reason: money. It's so easy to understand. If you save money on this, you can use that extra money for a lot of things. And this is the best weapon that you can use to convince your government to push for BIM. There's a mixture between the top down and the bottom up needings. Is that from top down, there's you need to from the top, you can push the industry to move and to take decisions, but from bottom up, the technicians, people can move the market and say, hey, we need a new way to do things. This is a good weapon too. The BIM group, BIM users groups along the world, building smart internationals. There are lots of associations that may help on this movement. And if we all push in the same direction, there's no option with BIM. So you must engage with BIM, or you can be outside of the market. That's all.
All right. Don't you feel that BIM softwares? I mean, it's an expensive affair, right? Because we need to buy subscriptions, and then we have all these softwares. Then there's training involved.
Yes, and this is especially serious in countries where the economy is not as good as let us say the main countries of the world, the top 8. I see every day here in Spain, Latin America, many countries in Asia. So I think that the problem is that the big companies like Autodesk, Graphisoft, Bentley, I think that they have not the sensibility that we need to allow the access to these technologies for a lot of very very wise and great technicians that there are in all these countries. It's not the same, the effort that we have to do in Spain or India to access a license of Revit or Archicad than the effort that must do a Norwegian or a Canadian guy.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think it should be changed by the market. I don't know if it can be done through the subscription formula or whatever, but I think this is should change. Yes, it's really very, very difficult to be a practitioner if you had to spend a lot of money in a market that you don't get. You are not usually well paid for your job. That's the real world I live every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And India is more of an outsource capital. We get a lot of outsource work in the field of BIM.
Yes, it is. And I don't like to identify a country like an outsourced country, services, because it reveals that there are two worlds, and I hate that. But in the other side, there is an evidence that there are a lot of really prepared technicians that should have a new opportunity, and there is an emerging market that I think that in a very few years it will come up and put on the position where everyone may be honestly with their skills, their abilities, and I think it should happen in a short time.
Absolutely. All right. Would you briefly tell us about what is the scenario of BIM in Spain, and where do you guys see yourself in like the coming few years?
Well, I think that it is not very difficult nor very different than India. Like I say, I've said, I have contacted with a lot of people here in Spain and other countries like in India or whatever, and there's enormous desire of work and doing things well. The problem for the development of BIM in all countries, Spain is one of them, is that in Spain and Latin America or Lithuania, a double push is needed. In the one hand, governments need to be convinced that BIM is so useful that they cannot resist the evidence, and applying and to convince them that then applying BIM reduces the cost, reduces the time, guarantees the durability and the maintenance of the facility. In other words, government should have more money left to do all the things, and we are all pushing on that direction. So in Spain, it's been for I think maybe 2 years ago a big movement on the BIM users groups. It's a very, very important movement, moving a lot of resources that otherwise would stay on the comfort area. And in the other hand is the government that are convinced of what I always say, that do you remember that phrase in that American phrase that it's the money, stupid? So they are finally realizing that there's the key point of that. This is the situation in Spain. There are a lot of technicians, a lot of good willing to go ahead on this line. And but we have the problem of the software is expensive, and that's all.
All right. And Spain's architecture is always mesmerizing, from Barcelona to Valencia. So where does BIM play a role in the field of renovation and preserving architecture?
Yes, there is. There is a big interest on this. Not only in Barcelona, I think that all over Spain we have a very big interest on this, because Spain is a very old country, and we have a lot of monuments, and we have a lot of historic buildings that must be kept. Yeah. So there is a huge interest on keeping these, and there are two areas that are emerging now, which is the cloud point developing, and also the facility management. Not only to build the digital model, the digital twin, but to do it from a reliable base, and to use it for a long time conservation program. So there are big interest on this in Spain, and mainly in the all Europe. Yes.
And the architecture, especially by Antoni Gaudi, it's very complex, right?
Terrific. That's where I think that this is one of the points where the big software, the main platforms, reveals their ability to deal with these, let us say, natural forms or natural patterns. So I think that most of them are thought, and it's logical, to build a lot of big buildings, but massive architecture or massive industrial facilities. But when you reach this kind of architecture, and you first get astonished with these shapes and how this lovely architecture could be done. You say, how I deal with this? Because, okay, yes, I use a Faro laser scanning or a Matterport or whatever, but how I put this on my program, guy? And so you have to use different kind of shapes or meshes or whatever, and then you have to apply properties to this, and you have to create a new classifying system to where do you start? So it's very complex, but it's a challenge that I love to deal. In fact, it's not with Gaudi architecture, but in some other cases is with what I deal as architect in my own practice every day with all chapels and all churches. So it's very funny to fight with it.
All right. So you had quite a illustrious career, and you've been the co-founder and CEO of BIM Freelance, and now you're part of BIM Skills, right? So how has been your experience as a BIM trainer and consultant?
Let us say we experienced a big experience along many years as a SCAD and BIM consultants. And in 2014, my partner and I decided to create a company that would bring together the professional experience that we have both developed separately. And then we created BIM Freelance. The objective was to create training programs, creating training programs for technicians in the AEC sector. But at that time, Zigurat Institute of Technology was looking for technical experts who could create a BIM master's degree for the technical course. And we reached an agreement in a very short time. Zigurat was in charge of managing the students and marketing of that product, while we created the academic program, hired the teachers, and and took care of the tutoring of the pedagogical contents.
Nice.
Initially, we created a Master BIM Manager in Spanish, then in Portuguese, and finally in English. Currently, the program is recognized by BRE, Canadian BIM Council, and also by the University of Barcelona. Trained over 2,000 BIM managers in more than 70 countries and on all continents.
Wow.
Well, for professional reasons, at the end of 2019, I left the management of BIM Freelance, and I'm currently starting a new challenge through my new company. It's called BIM Skills. It has a less academic focus, and it's more oriented to consulting and implementing BIM in companies and online training. At the moment, we offer our training only in Spanish, but we are preparing courses in English that will soon be available.
All right. So it's only training, or do you even provide certain services?
No, it's online training only.
Okay. So I think online training is, especially now, even more so because of the coronavirus, right?
Yes, because you see, online training is just linked to BIM. Nowadays, I can't understand face-to-face training. You do your when you have to buy something. Most of the times you go through Amazon. You use digital searches or research through Google or whatever. So specifically in BIM, you need to be digital. So and there's also something that many times is not sufficiently explored about the swarm force. I mean, if you need to build, let us say, washing machines, you need a big infrastructure, facilities, machines, and a lot of things. But if you develop projects, you are at home, and if you are alone or your team is reduced, or let us say 2 or 3 guys, you can join digitally to other 2 or 3 guys, another 2 or 3, another 2 or 3 in different locations, different countries, different continents. So if you have that conscience that you are swarm, you can fight with, or you can push or concur with to a bid, a public bid against big companies. And then if you succeed, you go ahead, and then when that project finishes, you get back to your own small organization. So this is absolutely digital. This is one of the important advantages of BIM.
Yeah, absolutely. I had one of our guests who was a digital nomad. Do you feel that even BIM managers can maybe sit in Japan and work on a project in Portugal, and then
Yes.
keep shifting cities and be a nomad for life?
Absolutely. Many times I use a real sample that I have, let us say, 300 kilometers away from my house, is Portugal. Portugal is a small country with extraordinary big and very good technicians, really trained and really skilled. And they are a small country, I insist, but they are used to join to be involved in projects in Brazil, in the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, And they work in Brazil. They go to South Africa. They work with people from in Ireland, and they are developing a lot of projects in East Timor. So they are. It's like on their DNA. They never feel blocked to be in a small country where they can't go away from there. They are used to collaborate digitally. So I insist, if wherever you live, you have in 2020 an internet connection. You can work in Canada, you can work in Australia, and you can work in the Middle East. So you are connected. That's all. I mean that one of the best things that you achieve with BIM is the workflows. If you define these, you can work from wherever you want or whatever you need with a lot of different companies and technicians for everywhere in the world, and there's no limits. This is the main change, the main difference from working with old parameters. So you are absolutely free to work wherever and with whatever.
Awesome. But don't you feel that there's a big, architecture as a profession has become so dynamic, but what is taught in the architecture schools are still way behind what is there in reality, right?
No, yeah, well, architecture schools, no. I don't know how it goes in India, but in Spain, we are now seeing that they are considering to implement digital technologies. This is very sad. So I think that if you want to be an architect, you have to assume that you are mostly, now you are not alone, but you have to do a lot of work alone. So happily, now you can achieve and you can reach a lot of information that it was very difficult to achieve 20 or 30 years ago. But don't expect anything on the universities. I don't know why. It is very sad, but they goes. I would like to say one step behind, but probably they are 1,000 steps behind.
Okay. All right. Could you briefly tell us about what a role of BIM manager is and what exactly does a BIM manager do?
Well, I can try to explain it. What should be very clear is that don't mix what is a BIM manager and what is a project manager. BIM manager is related with technology. Information technology, and project management must be led by an architect or an engineer or an expert in construction. And BIM management, it's necessary to be to have a technical training, but the most that must one of the most characteristics that should present a BIM manager is to know how to deal with information and how to lead a team, how to solve issues. That's the key points of a BIM manager. But I guess that in, let us say, 5 years' time, we will probably don't use the word BIM because it's nothing important. Sometimes I put the following example is that if you go if you're a candidate for a job in architecture or engineering, time ago, you go to the office and say, "Okay, guy, I know how to use Microsoft Word and Excel, and I also know how to use AutoCAD."
AutoCAD, yeah.
Would you go in? Would you think in 5 years' time say something like that? I know how to use Revit or Archicad. No. I suppose that you are a user. I suppose and you understand and apply in ISO 19650 or whatever ISO is working on by that time. And that's also the conception that may be kept is one side is the project and one side is the information, and in the middle there should be a guy who is able to relate to mix both needings with fluently and build that team that build the abilities that let that team to work very well. That's all.
Yeah, the rate at which technology is advancing, I don't know where we will be in like 5 years' time, right?
Yeah, no. I insist. Well, probably I guess that BIM is erased from our usual vocabulary, and that we talk about building, about construction, about efficiency, about economy. That's all. BIM is just. Can you see carpenters talking all the time about a saw? No, you talk about the job that they do, and they when they talk together, they talk about the result of their work. They do not spend that many time talking about the tool that they use.
Yeah, we need to go much beyond that and focus on things which the world faces, right? The climate change and all these other important things.
Yes, this is the very important thing that you can do with software. And sometimes you need to achieve more efficiency on thermal efficiency, or you can get better analysis of your structure or whatever. But at the end, you simply the trade or the main profession that you practice is the only important thing.
All right. So when someone gets into BIM, right, there's so much of information in BIM, like BIM levels, LODs, common data environment, interoperability, so many things. So, but what advice would you give to someone who's an absolute beginner and wants to learn more about BIM?
Well, first of all, I should look back and ask yourself how you have done things so far, what has worked, what has not worked, and what lesson have you learned. And then try to synthesize what standards you have worked with so far, and what you need. Not what there is, just what you need. It's very important, this difference. Then, if in your country has developed any guidelines for developing and managing projects with BIM, follow them. If not, there are many available on the internet. Let's say Finland, UK, Singapore, there are lots. Then ISO 19650 is like the Bible. When all that is clear, you will worry about choosing Dynamo, Python, or Revit, or whatever you need. But it's more important to know what you need than to programming how to get it. So don't. One of the phrases that I use is that take care with crossing the line and entering the dark side and lose the essence of what you are. So don't lose your profession, and try not to confuse the BIM management with project management, and because if you cross that line, you may turn your office into a chaos of competencies.
All right, Antonio, you had like quite a long career, and you've taught us a lot. And where do you see yourself 10 years from now?
Well, I'm 59 now, so hopefully I would like to see myself working, but just a bit less, if possible. I like to be active. Until I'm interested in something. If I'm with something boring me, I probably leave. I will leave it soon, but otherwise I like to work. I like to learn or listen to a lot of things. Mostly things related with my profession, but not limited to. I'm convinced that these times are a good opportunity to relieve the passion of the Renaissance architect. Because the digital world allows you to be everywhere at a time and access to enormous amount of knowledge. So I see myself always learning, probably.
All right. So I generally ask this to all my guests. Apart from BIM advice, what regular advice would you give to our young architects and architecture students?
Well, probably I say the same advice that I gave to my youngest son. I couldn't avoid him to study architecture. I tried, you can believe me. Okay. I told him, hey guy, if you don't like to work hard, choose another job. But if you love it, push hard and learn English. Because, yes, I always hated how badly I express myself in English. But consider that being born in 1916 in Spain, it was not that easy to learn or practice English. So, anyway, being serious, to practice architecture, there's a few things I think very important. First is to travel abroad as much as possible, just to know how other cultures face the same and different problems that you may face. To be curious about everything, to be anxious to learn from every rising day, and to learn and love all the trades involved in the process of building, from the carpenter, the bricklayer, the plumber, the worker who prepares a wooden formwork or for the concrete pillar, whatever. I think that this is the main things that should be considered if you want to start in architecture.
Awesome. That is some amazing advice, Antonio. I think even I can relate to a lot of that. Before I let you go, we just quickly jump into the Archgyan quickfire round, and then you can just give me brief answers to some few questions.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So, do you follow football?
No.
Okay.
No. I follow sailing, rugby, and a lot of time ago, judo. But I'm sad because both my two sons are football fans. But, well, you can't imagine. One of the one who is studying architecture is a supporter of the Manchester United.
Okay.
And they both love Barcelona. But,
Barcelona are the best.
Yeah, just for them, I get bored watching football. But I don't have much time to watch TV anyway.
But didn't you get an opportunity to go to Camp Nou and watch Lionel Messi play?
Yes, yeah, I've seen him playing. It was a present that they gave them to go to the Barcelona stadium, and we went there a couple of times. Just with the opportunity of some job I had there in Barcelona. I've been there in the Nou Camp a couple of times, and it was very, very funny. Well, mostly for them.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Which book has inspired you the most?
Book. It's difficult for me to talk about just one book.
Okay.
Because all of us who work in architecture, we gather information and inspiration from many sources. I remember that at the beginning, I liked James Stirling or Charles Moore than the 10 of that time, who were Aldo Rossi or Carlos Carpa, because I found their works very, very dull. I always liked the Finns, in general Nordic architects like Aalto and Juha Leiviska. Mm-hmm. And I also follow the current Nordic architecture because they have followed that path with a formidable adaptation to the new technologies. They care for the details, for the trades, and seem very elegant to me, just like the Japanese masters. In classics, I still find Wright fascinating.
All right. What type of music do you generally listen to?
Music. Well, mostly country and blues. But I'm open to classics or many styles. But you say, what have you as the pre-recorded music? Mostly country and blues.
Awesome. But I'm sure you must have been part of the party scene back then in the 90s, right?
Yes, but now I'm discovering a lot of new artists. But if you ask me who are you following the most, I could not tell you one artist in specifically. I simply love that sound, and I don't pay attention of who is singing. That's all.
Okay, all right. What would you have chosen had you not taken up architecture?
Good question. As I told you, in fact, I was not going to be an architect. And I wanted to be a pilot at first, but now, maybe I would like to be a carpenter. You know, that pleasure of working with wood, the smell, the shape, maybe one of my best option currently.
All right. So I'm assuming that you travel the world quite a lot. So which city would you consider your favorite?
Well, some time ago, I would say Stockholm, definitely. But over the years, it has become quite deteriorated. I think the same thing is happening to Barcelona, sadly. Nowadays, my favorite place is Galicia. It's a region placed at the northwest corner of Spain, where I live. And I love a small village called Puente. In fact, I'm building a house there on the beach.
Nice.
I'd like to move there. I love it because it is at the coast. I think I couldn't live without seeing the sea or going sailing. There's also river flows and forests, and because it is a very small village and has the human touch that the big city has lost. There is not a big bubble. You buy everything for every person, and also the airport is 30 minutes away. So if I need to get around, it's easy.
Awesome. Sounds like the perfect paradise.
Yeah, it is. It is. In fact, I can tell you that privately, we call it the paradise.
Okay. Nice. All right. So have you had any mentors in your life or someone who's inspired you the most?
Yes, fortunately, several. Absolutely not known or not known internationally, but I consider myself very fortunate to receive voice talks from two architects in my university. One was Rafael Baltar, and the other one is Alfredo Alcalá. The first one taught us how to understand different relationships among the different pieces of the buildings, the circulation of the things, as he used to say. And another exceptionally interesting thought that he had, and I learned from him, was architects should use a pencil with a writing point available only 5 minutes every hour, so that you think more than you project.
Okay.
This is one of his famous phrases. And the other one, Alfredo Alcalá, is still alive. I learned him the love for the detail, that the architecture is made of traits, the ability to go to the scale 1 to 10 or 1 to 5, and he let us understand how everything works. In fact, I decided to be architect when I was 10 or maybe less. When I saw a small church made in that village that I mentioned before, it was a small church made by him, projected by him with an extremely reduced budget and very high quality shapes and an inner space. Really lovely. It's a pity that they haven't got acknowledged either to them both. This is life. Plenty of wise people with a lot of interesting knowledge remaining unknown.
Yeah, absolutely.
From Alfredo Alcalá, I at least tried, and still trying, to put in value a very small chapel there in Puente, built with very reduced funds, which was, as I told you, the origin of my love for architecture.
All right, Antonio, my last question to you is, what does a daily routine in your life look like?
Well, with one word, I'd say illusion. I try to do something good and better every day. I try to live happily and make happy the ones who live near me. Maybe I work too much, probably. I talk a lot, and I draw even more. I'm always jotting notes with schemas, arrows, circles, and so. I love to get up early, which in Spain is really a big effort. Because, because I rarely go to bed before 12 or 12:30 at night. So, and I'm very often I'm at work before 8 a.m. So, yes. Online work is my main activity. And at least 1 or 2 days a week, I visit the job sites of my projects. And because I think that having my own practice, let me check if what I teach really works or not. Mm-hmm. And finally, at the afternoon and evenings, I go back to internet. I supervise our BIM implementations in BIM Skills. And I also supervise the courses, or also finalize some projects that have been developed in our practice. And at the very end of the day, I try to find some time to share a bit with friends, walk a bit. And I should go to gym, but what to choose: to talk with friends, or fight with gym machines, or share some beers.
Awesome.
Hopefully.
That's interesting, actually. All right, thanks, Antonio, for coming to the Archgyan podcast. You're a very busy person, but you still took out the time to be on the podcast. Thanks for that.
Thank you so much, Manish, and I repeat, I'm really honored to be invited by you, and I wish we can get in touch again very soon, because I'm really interested with the India evolution in BIM, and I have a lot of contacts in LinkedIn account, so I hope to be in contact very, very frequently with you.
Awesome.
And my best wishes for your program.
You've been listening to the Archgyan podcast. We're still building the community. Please share this knowledge with someone you know who could benefit. Just send them to archgyan.com, where you'll find our free newsletter, and for more podcast episodes, search for the show on any major podcasting platform. Don't forget to subscribe where you're listening right now. And if you liked it, leave a rating or review.